Hi, I'm Bri Williams, the Behaviour Explainer, and today it is my top 5 TED Talks on behaviour change. All right, let's start. Kicking us off at number 5, we have Life Lessons of an Ad Man by the amazing Rory Sutherland. Rory, who's a bigwig at ad agency Ogilvy.
Call me Mr. Picky, I'm just an ad man.
And this has amassed over 3 million views, recorded in 2009. So much to love in this talk. Rory is not only one of the funniest presenters you will ever see, but it's packed full of substance as well. So great ideas like how to improve the
train which goes from London to Paris.
A very lateral thinking way.
What you should in fact do is employ all of the world's top male and female supermodels, pay them to walk the length of the train handing out free Chateau Petrus for the entire duration of the journey. Now,
this is what I love about Rory. He looks at a problem and comes at it from a perspective that you might not expect. The most important thing I took from Rory's talk, that most problems in society are those of perception, not reality.
And this shows that engineers, medical people, scientific people have an obsession with solving the problems of reality. When actually most problems, once you reach a basic level of wealth in society, most problems are actually problems of perception.
And if nothing else, this talk is worth it for the Shreddies example of market research alone. So check it out, Rory Sutherland, Life Lessons of an Ad Man. In 4th position, it's a talk that I think has been underviewed because I think there's some gold in here. It is 3 Myths of Behaviour Change by sociology professor Jenni. This talk was recorded in 2013 and has got over 1 million views, and I think it deserves more.
It's the greatest kept secret of social science.
So the 3 myths that Jenni looks into. At number 1, we have education will change behaviour. The second myth, that you have to change an attitude to change behaviour.
Attitudes follow behavior, they do not predict it.
And the third myth is that people know what motivates them to take action. The most important thing I took from Jenni's talk, the enemy of change is not that it's difficult.
Your greatest adversary is common sense.
So if you've ever wondered why what you're doing is not getting traction, I'd really encourage you to check out Jenni's talk, and she will talk you through 3 myths about how we approach behaviour change.
You will be the least successful if you let common sense be your guide.
Coming in at number 3, cheeky of me to have him so far down the list. It is a talk by Nobel laureate, father of behavioural economics, a psychology professor, Daniel Kahneman, and his talk, The Riddle of Experience versus Remembering Self. Recorded in 2010 and has over 6 million views. This talk is really important because Danny gets to this very key concept of how we distort our memories and our thinking. Effectively, the experiencing self lives in the present.
It's the experiencing self that the doctor approaches. You know, when the doctor asks, does it hurt now when I touch you here?
The remembering self is the one that keeps score, is the storyteller, and the one that makes decisions.
It's the one that the doctor approaches in asking the question, how have you been feeling lately?
The most important thing I took from Daniel Kahneman's talk is that the remembering self runs the show.
Those are 2 very different entities, the experiencing self and the remembering self, and getting confused between them is part of the mess about the notion of happiness.
Look, you can't go wrong, can you, anytime you tune into what a Nobel laureate has to say. So I highly encourage you to not only read his book, Thinking Fast and Slow, but to check out Daniel Kahneman's talk, The Riddle of Experience versus Memory. Number 2, we're getting to the pointy end. Now, we are going way back in time for this one. Seminal talk by Bri Schwartz, a psychologist and professor, recorded in 2005, had over 14 million views. What's he talking about? He's talking about the paradox of choice. Barry starts in a pretty provocative way because he explores the existing dogma of freedom being above all else.
The way to maximize freedom is to maximize choice.
If we maximize choice, we'll maximize happiness. And through the talk, he pretty much just unravels that dogma and suggests that more choice isn't necessarily a good thing.
This, I think, is so deeply embedded in the water supply that it wouldn't occur to anyone to question it.
There are 4 key reasons why he believes choice makes people miserable. The first is regret and anticipated regret. So every time we make a choice between a larger choice array, we regret we might have made the wrong decision. The second is opportunity cost. So for everything we choose, we're not choosing something else. The third is what he calls an escalation of expectations. And he outlines this with a really funny anecdote about buying dad jeans. Well, I've called them dad jeans. Jeans.
Shopkeeper said, do you want slim fit, easy fit, relaxed fit? You want button fly or zipper fly? You want stone washed or acid washed? Do you want them distressed? Do you want boot cut? Do you want tapered? Blah, 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 on and on. He went, my jaw dropped. And after I recovered, I said, I want the kind that used to be the only kind.
In other words, he did better, so he got a better pair of fitted jeans, but he felt worse about how he went about it. And the fourth reason Barry suggests that we are miserable if we have more choice than we know how to cope with is self-blame. In short, the burden of the decision is ours. With all of this choice in the world, we should be able to make the right decision. And if we don't, who's to blame? It's us. The most important thing I took from Barry's talk is that some choice is better than no choice, but more choice isn't better than some.
Because the truth of the matter is that if you shatter the fishbowl so that everything is possible, you don't have freedom, you have paralysis. If you shatter this fishbowl so that everything is possible, you decrease satisfaction. You increase paralysis and you decrease satisfaction.
The reason the paradox of choice has become almost part of the lexicon of the modern age, Barry Schwartz brings really powerful ideas in a very digestible way. Number 1. Now for number 1, I've selected more on the basis of the speaker than necessarily the talk, because the speaker is, I think, one of the best speakers about the field of behaviour change and behavioural economics. Introducing Dan Ariely. Now this talk, How to Change Your Behaviour for the Better, was recorded in 2019, and as a result, it's got a modest 2.7 million views at the current time. It was Dan's book, Predictably Irrational, that put me on my own professional path of behavioural science. So you could say I'm a fan. What I like about this talk is that he likens behaviour change to a metaphor of a rocket. And so, you have fuel as the motivation. You need to have as little friction as possible so that the rocket can move through the air.
Sending a rocket to space, we want to do 2 main things. The first one is to reduce friction. We want to take the rocket and have as little friction as possible, so it's the most aerodynamic possible. And the second thing is we want to load as much fuel as possible to give it the most amount of motivation, energy to do its task. And behavior change is the same thing.
One of the major points that I love about this talk is that he says when desired action and easy action are not aligned, that's when we have a problem. So in other words, when we know what we want people to do, but it's not easy for them to do it, that's the challenge.
If we'll attack each problem directly, and not by just providing more information to people, but trying to change the friction, add motivation, I think we can we close the gap? No. But can we get much better? Absolutely yes.
The most important message I took from Dan's talk, don't change people, change the environment. So now that we know the top 5, what's the through line, if you like, around behaviour change? The through line of all these talks for me is that we can't trust our assumptions. How we've thought people behave isn't the reality of how people behave. And that means for us, If we want to change other people's behaviour, or in fact our own, we have to revisit those assumptions and try new things. So there you have it. It's my top 5. What do you think? You might have a completely different top 5, or you might suggest other talks in the comments that you've enjoyed and you think others will as well. I'd love you to like this video if you found it useful, and please subscribe to my channel if you would like some behavioural tips from me. I've been Bri Williams. See you next time. Our greatest adversary to change. Williams. Adversary. Difficult to say. To on memory versus. We should maximize freedom, and as a result of that, for that I am eternally grateful. And on a completely trivial note, we had Barry, we had Jenni, we had Danny, we had Rory, we had Ariely. See, to be a master of behavioural science, you just have to have a name that ends in E.